Hey guys, welcome into the Pecker Reborn channel. We are back with another top 5 named weapons of the week. This week's going to be, of course, as always, fun, but with a very unique name in this. Do not miss this whole list. It's absolutely hilarious. Besides that, guys, if you want to enter a weapon for top 5 named weapons in the week, you can go to the description section below. It'll tell you how to do it, of course. And then also the Discord is officially up. My Discord is there. So if you want to submit, there's a separate category for the top 5 weapons of the week. Without further ado, let's get into this. Number 5. Number 5 is the Canon of the Divine Will. Yes, it's so holy, so righteous that when you hold the trigger and you pull it, it feels like a revelation and then a purification upon the land of anything in the sands. I love it. I love this weapon. Shimmy, thank you so much for this submission. You know, this weapon here is easily at number 5. Just slips in. There were some other really good weapons, but this thing does have its own niche build that's going to be beautiful. Number 1, the big increase here is the 30% effectiveness against armor being added onto the 100% off the baseline of the normal weapon. When you hit something, there is that potential of doing about 90 damage to armor on the top end. That's fantastic if you're starting to talk about these handguns in general. Otherwise, you're pretty much going from a ratio of 50 to 90, which is really awesome. I mean, when we get down to the nuts and bolts, that's fantastic. You gotta love that boost. 30% is never going to be a bad thing. And then finally, the max fatigue going from 12 down to 7. Now, when I say niche build, it's definitely because this weapon in particular is going to be made for somebody who has overwhelm, who is a very nimble character. Now, nimble does not base itself on the heaviness of the weapon, and thank God, because nobody would be able to make a nimble build, but being able to have a really high initiative with this weapon could make a creative build that's either overwhelm, which you can, doesn't matter if it hits anything, as long as it's in that cone of fire, you're getting a negative 10% against the enemy. Or imagine a dagger build with this, like a brother who has both, melee and has this range, I can't think of the range skill, right? And this thing you can switch out at will after blowing up everybody and then going in for some dagger kills. It's a very unique weapon. There's a lot that you can do with it, but ultimately, even if it's not meant for that in general, the fact that you can destroy armor a lot quicker and more efficiently is definitely worth having. Number 4. Number 4 is the Hone Long Spear. It may be a short spear, but when that thing goes right up your backside and through your chest cavity and makes your freaking tongue squeal, yeah, it's gonna feel nasty and very long in your body. That's what she said. That was a really nasty, that's what she said, but it still matters nonetheless. Astrology Means, thank you so much for this weapon. I gotta get right into it. Number 1 that I love about this weapon is the damage. It does a considerable boost. The baseline for a fighting spear is 35. This thing goes up to 45. That's 10. And the other thing too is it already goes past the top end of damage on a fighting spear, going from 40 up to 52. That's 12 extra damage. That range is fantastic. Now granted, there wasn't a boost in terms of the percentages that can affect armor or go against or ignore armor. However, the max fatigue drop from 10 to 6 is actually amazing in terms of your different builds that you're going to be using this thing on in general. This thing pretty much serves 2 different purposes. If you're using a nimble build with you need a certain amount of fatigue, or you're trying to pack a guy with armor and you just don't have much for fatigue, this thing's going to help you with that extra 4. Plus the fact of masteries and so on, how you're going to use this with a tank, being able to spear wall, or using this on a duelist as well. Effective, very effective on duelist, which also brings up the next point, is that the durability goes from 72 up to 88. All around, this spear is very well endowed, and it's going to be very helpful to use with a tank or a new duelist, or however you want to use it. It has its purpose, so definitely an awesome weapon. At number 4. Number 3. Number 3 is the Savage Hacker. Now this thing, when it touches your bones, it's going to peel the meat off a little bit at a time. You never had great ribs before? Wait until you get this thing. It'll tear the ribs right off and cook them before it even hits the freaking fire. My God, I love this. Now, thank you, Jack Blade, for another submission. I love this weapon in general. Being able to use this on a really a high intensive fatigue build is going to be nasty. Now, the big thing to start out with this weapon is the damage boost. You're going from 40 all the way up to 50. That's a 10 increase, and then 70 on the top end to 88. 88, an 18 jump in damage. Holy freaking nuts, Batman. Here's the deal. When you talk about a war brand, this thing is a war brand in one hand with more fatigue intense when using it. But the effectiveness against armor can definitely show out when you're talking going up to almost 170 damage to armor if you're talking about the top end of 88 plus the 110 effectiveness against armor. Jump, that's over 2 turns, yada yada. I hope that makes sense, but nonetheless, the percentages stay the same, but truly pure damage does such a great deal of boost in terms of ignoring armor, in terms of the jump in effectiveness against armor. Now, in terms of the fatigue, we all know the one thing that's always going to draw down the orc weapons is the buildup of fatigue when we're using it. Now, looking at the max fatigue itself, it dropped from 18 to 12, saving you effectively 6 fatigue. After one strike with this weapon, you already built up almost all of that fatigue back because of the, but for what it's worth, it's still better than 18. It still saves you some fatigue. You got to look at it perspective. It's a great weapon. I don't take a lot from the max fatigue drop, but there are weapons that you get with these guys that can drop it down for the negative, or not being 5 per use. Either way, this thing is nasty in a duelist build because you're going to need somebody with a lot of fatigue to cut somebody open. It's going to devastate. It's going to wreck the competition. Hopefully someday we can get that dropped completely, that buildup of 5 fatigue. Impossible, but it's cool to think of. Either way, this thing's going to hack up a bunch of people. Got to love the head chopper, and that's what it's going to do. But before we get into number 2, I gotta ask for that like and a subscribe. If you do enjoy this content, please help it grow. It is kind of a piece of crap, but at the same time, I don't want to be mixed up with the likes of Bono. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that is a South Park reference. Let's get into the next one, number 2. Number 2 is Fallen Heroes Pecker. This guy's gonna whip it out of his freaking rusty mail and beat the hell out of everything he sees. This guy was truly a legend. This weapon is a legend, and it sucks that it didn't make number 1. I had to be honest about it, but my god, there's no other legendary undead wieners than this one here, the Fallen Heroes Pecker. Easily the best named weapon out of any weapon that will ever probably be produced on this channel in terms of the name. I cannot, and it was so close to being the number 1. I wish it would have been, but I gotta be real about it. So let's get into what makes this thing tick, and yeah, let's see what happens here. So starting out with the damage, you're going from 60 up to 77. That's a 17 damage increase, and then you're going on the top end 90 to 116. That's 26 top end damage. Guys, this thing already has really great stats in terms of the baseline of 50% ignoring armor, 200% effectiveness against armor. With the mastery, you're going up a whole nother 25% effective against armor. That's incredible. This thing can easily pop out 260 armor damage on one swing. It can do in terms of the 50% ignoring armor already, you're talking let's see here, 37 up to 65 damage. No, 62. Right in there. Either way, you have a great range in terms of what you can do ignoring armor. It's fantastic, and it doesn't even stop there. We talk about AoE swings with this thing. We talk about tearing out armor of 3 different people. With a guy who has 100 melee skill, this thing is going to be absolutely bonkers. The effect, or the buildup of fatigue goes -3 less. That is great. Every time you swing this thing, -3, I believe every single swing is 15, so you're going down to 12. You put the mastery on top of that. This thing is just nuts. This weapon is all around fantastic, and the fact that anybody asks you, what's that on his back? Oh, it's just a Fallen Heroes Pecker. My god, this guy is savage. Truly, it is a savage thing. So for it, I just want to give you a shout out. Thank you so much for this weapon. You need to cherish this thing. You need to put it away in a chest And when people ask you what was the best weapon you ever had, you say, a fallen hero's Pecker. I'm going to say it 1,000 times. Great submission. Wish it was number 1, so close. But let's get in and see what made number 1. And now, the one you've been waiting for. Number 1. Number 1 is Bitter Shieldbreaker. No, here's what I'm going to tell you. Throw that BS lion crap out of here. Shieldbreaker does not do its justice. It should be Heartbreaker. It should be Bonebreaker. It should be Head Snapper. Fallen Hero Pecker Whacker. I mean, I don't even care. It's got to be insane. I want to give a shout out to Zombic. I'm not even going to say the rest of it because it's way too crazy. But Zombic, you have yourself a near perfect weapon, if not perfect. I'm just gush over this thing. When I saw it, I was like, this is insane. This weapon is literally insane. So let's get into what makes it insane. So starting out, the damage itself, you're going up from 35 up to 44. That's a 9 baseline increase. Then you look at the top end damage going from 55 to 70. That's 15 extra damage. Nasty, but it doesn't stop there. You look at the ignoring armor, you're going from 30 up to 46. That's a 16% increase on ignoring armor potential. Yeah, look at it almost as that 50%. You're really close to that of any damage that you do. Now, why is this important? This weapon can be wasted. This weapon can be wasted with a tank build, with a shield build. You're not using it to your full extent. This thing has so much more potential. If you put this in the hands of a duelist, good night. Double gripping ends up giving you 25% damage. Throw that on there. You go with duelist, throw it on there. There's another 25%. Now you're at 50% extra damage just starting out. That is never going to change. That is how it is in a duelist hand. And then with killing something, you're getting Killing Frenzy for 2 turns, which allows you to do 25 extra damage, which is 75. Very easy to do with this weapon in the first place. And then if you do Executioner, if you want to go that far, you can go up to 95% extra damage thrown into this bad boy on a single strike. Now granted, the 2 at the end, the 45 extra damage is based on what you consider in terms of your perks. But either way, hitting this thing and getting that extra crit, because it's a downward motion, it swipes, hits head and body. That's how axes work. Boom. This thing is going to absolutely devastate anything in the game that really it comes up against in the right hands. You give this to a brother who has the 100 melee skill, and he can just go to town killing everything in his sight without skipping a beat. I absolutely love this weapon. It's so close. It's so on par with the mace that we ended have for the weapon of the month. So with that being said, guys, that's amazing. I have to say, however, the Fallen Heroes Pecker had a lot of great things to it as well. It was tough to pick between the two, but ultimately I have to be a realist about the damage and what you're capable on the top end of each of these weapons. It's so close, but this thing edges it out because of the ignoring armor and because of the base armor, and it does kind of give it a boost because of the perks as well. But the final thing I do want to say, I didn't end up bringing this up, is that it has a durability going from 80 to 105. That's 25 extra durability for the test of time. I mean, you just don't get much better than that. So definitely an amazing weapon, worthy of weapon of the week. So congrats on that, guys. If you did like this, please hit the like, subscribe, and if you don't already know, or if you didn't hear it right at the beginning, just remember I do have a Discord. You can go down there. You can go to that. I'll have a link in the description below, and you can join up, and then you can enter your weapons at will. I would love to see what you guys have going forward. Without further ado, I am out of here, so I will see you in the next one. Bye!